Hey guys, Wade with Texas Long Range Hunting. Today we're going to talk about shooting off of a tripod, but before we shoot off of it, we need to set it up. Now before we get into the setup, I want to talk about tripods in general really fast. Now we're going to start doing a series about positional shooting in the field for a hunting type scenario. Now I figured what better place to start with a tripod. But before you move on and just go buy a tripod and do this and that, I want to talk about the tripod itself. Make sure your tripod is suitable for the weight of rifle you have. Now, if you have like a 25-pound rifle that you just ride in a pickup, jump out and shoot long range, a super lightweight, very small leg carbon fiber tripod isn't gonna be the most stable thing in the world. You're gonna want something like this big old Vortex tripod or something from Two Vets or something along those lines made for PRS shooting for a rifle of that size. So make sure your tripod is paired up well with your rifle. Now, we'll probably try to do a video eventually going over different sizes of tripods that are good for this weight rifle and that weight, but there's so many out there. Just look up the specs and then ask around PRS shooters, your other buddies who shoot long range off tripod, and get a good idea from there. You can even go to a bunch of stores and try out the tripod, and I'm sure they would let you bring your rifle in as long as it's unloaded and try the tripod out before you purchased it. So let's get into the tripod setup. Now, first things first, before you can even go down this route, you need to make yourself familiar about how the tripod works, how the legs work, how the ball head works. I don't know how many times I've been in the field with people and they don't even know how to use a simple ball head. So become familiar with your equipment before you take your equipment out into the field. It's pretty simple. Most ball heads have a larger knob that controls the actual ball itself. It has a smaller lower knob that controls the pan feature. And then this smaller knob right here controls the locking portion of the actual ball head. You can completely lock it down into position to where this large knob won't even let this thing go. So make yourself familiar with your equipment, learn how it works, and things will be a lot easier in the field. So let's set up the tripod. Now for a standing shot for myself, and this is gonna be different for people, and you can do a lot of shooting and figure out what works best for you. This is just what works best for me. Now what I typically like to do is utilize the largest part of the legs first. I don't ever start with a small portion of legs and then slowly work out from there. I start with a large portion and go down, because the more meat you have, the more stable it tends to be. So we're gonna start with the large portion, moving down to the smaller size of legs. Now what I'm doing is getting this thing locked back down, and I'm not putting a wrench on it or anything like that. I'm just locking it back down tight to where I know it'll stay held. Now when I set up my tripod for myself standing shots, I run them legs out and I stand it up straight like this. This is typically about the height I like it to be on this particular tripod. A lot of tripods are closely same, but some are going to differ, so just mess with it and figure out what's comfortable and what works best for you. And that's definitely dependent upon terrain and what angle you're shooting at, what angle you need to be able to shoot at, so on and so forth. You just have to get out in the field and practice with your equipment to figure out what works best for you. So I've got my height set for me that works good for me. I'm going to kick this leg out as far as I go, kick these two legs out as far as I go, and I'm going to rotate this thing to where this center leg is facing towards the center of my body. I'm going to offset it slightly to the left to my offhand side. Now what this does is it puts the large knob for the ball head on my offhand side and the pan right here on my shooting hand side, because I'm dominant right hand shooter. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen off the ARCA clamp, grab my rifle. Rifle is clear. I'm gonna set it up in here, and typically what you wanna do is find the good center balancing point. This rifle is balanced very well, so it has a pretty large section that it's balanced very well. Plus it has the flat ARCA plate, which helps out a lot, but this rifle is balanced very well. So I have a lot of real estate there to where it's balanced perfectly well. So what I typically do is run a little bit further back to where it's just past the mag well, usually about 2 finger widths is where I like mine to be. But again, mess with your rifle, figure out what works for you. And the same thing can be done when it comes to those clamp style, like Triclops and Kopfjager and stuff like that. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take a quick look at my level, make sure the rifle's sitting pretty level. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen off the pan feature. I don't want it super loose, but I do want to be able to move it because most of the time animals are moving, and I may not be wanting to take a shot on a moving animal, but I do want to be able to track the animal easily to be ready for when he stops to make that shot. And hopefully you have a spotter and you're ready to go with everything else. But we've got our pan slightly loosened. The ball head's locked down on a level reticle. So we're gonna get behind the rifle. Typically what I'll do is I'll start at the butt of the rifle. I'll back up about a half a step to a full step. Get behind my rifle. My offhand goes about right here. And this is very much what's comfortable for you. You may not even want this leg back here. The recoil impulse of your rifle may, in the way you load your rifle, it may be better to put this leg to the front, or perhaps if you're shooting it down an extreme slope, and we'll get into that stuff later, that leg's definitely going to want to be downward on the downward slope to hopefully make sure your rifle doesn't fall down said slope. So we're going to get right here with our offhand and get comfortable. Then we're going to get behind a rifle. Not going to put all of our weight into the rifle, but we're going to get comfortable, because that's what gives you a good shot, is being comfortable behind your rifle. So we're set up on our target, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reach up here and lock down the ball head with my crosshairs slightly lower than the actual target I'm gonna shoot. Because what typically happens is when I get ready and I load the tripod with my offhand and then load my center mass, it's slightly off center, but I call it center mass, into this rifle, on a lockdown ball head, it brings the crosshairs up slightly. And this is gonna differ. I've heard people say anywhere from 4 to 6 mils and this and that. It's depending upon range, angle, how much weight you're loading your rifle, all that kind of good stuff. Just figure out what works for you when you're out here practicing on the range, and then go from there. But I typically do lock it down myself about 4 mils low, meaning the crosshairs are lower than the target that I'm intending on shooting, because by the time I lock down, I have more weight on my offhand than I am loading the rifle, because what I'm trying to do with this offhand is really anchor this tripod down. And I'm just trying to get comfortable with my shooting shoulder, center mass, what I call it. Get rested in, I'm gonna chamber around and make the shot. Now, as I said, the whole reason why we run the large knob on the offhand and leave the pan feature loose slightly is because if I'm here set up to make a shot and I'm watching some animals, they're on the move, I can pan. I can move horizontally easily. I can move quite a bit around this rifle before I need to completely resituate the tripod to get comfortable again. And if for some reason you need to move to a total different location, right here on your offhand is a large knob. Without even getting off my rifle, I can make huge adjustments with the ball head adjustment, the large knob, without even getting off the scope. When it comes time to long range hunt, to me, it's paramount to have a spotter and have a shooter who communicate well. And once your shooter gets on his rifle, typically, I don't like them getting off the rifle. That's just my personal preference, because once they find the right animal and they're on it, they need to stay on it. The more time they can look through that rifle, they can get their breathing under control, and you just make them wait for the perfect shot, and make sure you wait till you have the good wind reading and all that kind of good stuff. The more time they look at the animal, the more they'll calm down. That's pretty much it for this time. We'll see you guys next time.